Welcome back to the equation unit. Today we're going to be talking about variables on both sides of the equations. This is the most complicated type of equations that we're going to be talking about. So again, we're going to be breaking this into two parts. This is part one, so let's go ahead and get started right now. Welcome back. Today we're going to be continuing the equations unit. We're talking about equations that have variables on both sides. This is going to be broken into two parts, so this is part one. Let's go ahead and get started right now. Now, a few reminders before we begin. Remember, we always want to draw that wall so that we can keep those sides separated from each other. You can only combine like terms on the same side of the wall. So we're going to have equations that have two variables here. They're going to have variables on one side of the equation and on the other, but it's important to know that we can't just combine them unless they're on the same side of the wall. Now let's take a look at some steps to success. So when solving equations with variables on both sides, remember it's important to eliminate one of the variables by their addition or subtraction, depending on if it's a positive or negative coefficient. Step two, we're going to eliminate the constant by using the inverse operation. And then finally, we're going to eliminate that coefficient by using the inverse operation. The last two steps are pretty much equation steps that we've been using since two-step equations. But that first one is we got to eliminate a variable on one side. So we're down to just one variable before we begin. So let's go ahead and take a look at example A. So here we are at example A, and it says solve for n. So we've got 3n plus 5 equals 5n minus 1. So now we've got a real problem, or something that we've never faced before. We've got 3n on one side of the variable and 5n on the other. Which one do we solve for? Well, the answer is that we've got to eliminate one of them before we can actually do any work. So I'm going to draw my wall because I want to make sure to remember to always do that, keep my sides separated. Then I can get rid of either the 3n or the 5n. It literally doesn't matter. You just have to pick one. I'm going to get rid of the 3n because I know when I subtract that from one side to the other, that I'm going to be left with a positive coefficient. If I subtract 5 from 3, I'm going to end up with negative 2. I can still solve the equation. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just want to make it a little easier on myself and leave myself a positive coefficient. So I'm going to subtract 3n from one side and subtract 3n from the other side. When I do that, they're going to cancel, bring down my 5. 5n minus 3n is 2n, just like if I were combining like terms, and then bring down my negative 1. Now I've left myself with an easy peasy two-step equation. So I've got to get rid of my constant, which is negative 1. So the opposite is positive 1. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides of my equation. Again, drawing that wall to keep my steps separated. Bring down my 2n. 5 plus 1 is 6. Now I'm left with just a one-step equation. I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides because the opposite of multiplication is division. These are going to cancel. Bring down my n, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So n equals 3. So notice I was able to get rid of one variable, and that then left me with just a two-step equation that I could go ahead and solve. Let's take a look at example B. So here we are at example B, and it says solve for A. I've got negative 3a minus 7 equals 5a minus 23. So again, the first thing I'm going to do is draw my wall because I want to keep those sides separated. Then I've got negative 3a on one side, positive 5a on the other. I have to get rid of one or the other. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to get rid of, again, the minus 3a so that I end up with a positive coefficient. I just want to make life easier on myself. If I subtract 5a from both sides, I'd end up with negative 8a. Again, I can make that work. I can solve an equation that way, but I'm going to save myself the headache of the negative, and I'm going to add 3a to both sides. So let's do that now. Adding 3a to both sides, again, drawing that line to keep my steps separated. Negative 3a and positive 3a are going to cancel out. Bring down my negative 7. 5a plus 3a is going to give me 8a. Bring down my negative 23. And then I've got my next step. Again, I've got just a two-step equation. So I'm going to add 23 to both sides to get rid of my constant. Negative 7 plus 23. Going to leave me with positive 16. Again, if we don't know our integer rules, we should use our calculator. Got a calculator. It's our math tool. We should always be using our math tools when available to us. So write down our 16. Our negative 23 and our positive 23 have canceled out. Bring down our 8a. Then we're going to divide both sides by 8 because the opposite of multiplication is division. And 16 divided by 8 is going to give me 2. So a equals 2 or 2 equals a. Doesn't matter which way you read it. And let's go on to example C. So here we are in example C, and again, we've got the same kind of problem, except we're solving for x. So I'm going to be drawing my wall down from the equal side and keep my sides separated. And this time I'm actually going to subtract the 2x to show that even if I end up with a negative coefficient, I can end up getting the same answer or can end up doing the problem. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. Again, it doesn't matter which variable you decide to move. You just have to move one of them. 2x minus 2x is going to cancel. Negative 5x minus 2x is going to give me negative 7x. Bring down my positive 2, and then bring down my negative 10. So now I've just left with a two-step equation, so I'm going to get rid of my constant by subtracting 2 on both sides of my equation. They are going to cancel. Bring down my negative 7x. Negative 10 minus 2 is going to give me negative 12. Oh no, I can see that 7 isn't going to go into 12, but that's okay. Fractions are a part of life. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 7, and since these cannot be simplified, I'm going to leave it as an improper fraction. Now, if I'm going to be leaving it as an improper fraction, I do see that a negative divided by a negative is going to give me a positive. So in the end, I'm going to have positive 12/7. I'm going to leave my answer as an improper fraction. Do not attempt to turn it into a mixed number. That's not what we need to do because it is not a word problem. That's the only time that you really need to use mixed numbers going forward. And let's go ahead and look at practice number 1. So here we are at practice problem number 1. You're going to try this one on your own. Do the best that you can. Remember to draw that wall. Remember to pick one of those variables to get rid of. And go ahead and do the best that you can. Pause the video now. Do all of your work. And then press play again to see if you are right. How did you do? Hopefully you got x equals negative 4. Notice that I got rid of the positive 6x, so they ended with a positive x at the end. Of course, if you got rid of the 7, you would have ended with negative x and just had to divide by negative 1 at the end. But either way, you would have ended up with x equals negative 4. And let's go on and try practice problem number 2. All right, here we are at practice problem number 2. You're going to try this one on your own, so go ahead and pause the video now. Do the best that you can, then press play again to see if you are right. How did you do? Were you able to get the same answer that I got? Hopefully you did. I got x equals 1/3. It's okay to get fractions as your answer. Fractions are a part of life. So hopefully that you got the answer correct. If not, go ahead and look through my work, see where you may have made your mistake and correct your paper. That brings us to the end of this video. So if you like this video, go ahead and smack that like button. If you love this video, go ahead and throw us a sub, and we will catch you in the next one.